Okay, good morning, everybody. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. My name is Robina Kolok. Today we have a very interesting topic that has been, I think it's been in the media, or it's been a topic of discussion for some time, and we felt that we should take the time to answer some questions, or take the time to clarify some issues that you may have, or you may have misunderstood out on the streets. Basically, our topic, as already shared before, is a discussion on South Sudanese nationality, passport, and immigration. Basically, we want to find out the vetting processes, the myths, and the reality on ground, how things are done. As I said before, my name is Robina Kolok. I have with me a team of for now 4 ladies with different professional background. I have Dr. Juliana Ball. I have Miss Lillian Basoronga. I have Captain Iyal Daoud Lakirimoy and Miss Caroline Kibos. I will give you a very brief introduction of the background of the ladies that I have just introduced to you. I have with me a team of professional background. I have Dr. Juliana Ball. I have Miss Lillian Basoronga. I have Captain Iyal Daoud Lakirimoy. Just before I introduce to you the ladies that we have on the panel, I would like to introduce to you the topic that we have today. As I said before, we want to talk about the South Sudanese nationality passports and immigration, the vetting processes, myths and reality. In South Sudan, citizenship rights are regulated by the Transitional Constitution, the National Act, and the National Regulations, all adopted in 2011. After gaining independence from Sudan in 2011, South Sudan moved towards an ethnic definition of nationality, where applicants are expected to provide evidence of their ethnic belonging. The law provides for the acquisition of citizenship by birth or through naturalization, and guarantees the same rights for men and women when it comes to nationality. South Sudan explicitly allows dual nationality. In a report released in February 2019, the Human Rights Council noted that many South Sudanese hold dual nationality. Article 45 of the 2011 Transitional Constitution states that 1. Every person born in South Sudan, born to a South Sudanese mother or father, shall have an alienable right to enjoy South Sudanese citizenship and nationality. Citizenship is the basis of Second, citizenship is the basis of equal rights and duties for all South Sudanese. Thirdly, every citizen shall employ all the rights guaranteed by the Constitution. Fourthly, the law shall regulate citizenship and naturalization. No naturalized citizen shall be deprived of his or her acquired citizenship except in accordance with the law. Fifth, a South Sudanese national may acquire the nationality of another country as shall be prescribed by law. And this is what we call the dual citizenship. Lastly, a non-South Sudanese may acquire the nationality of South Sudan by naturalization as shall be prescribed by law. The law regulating citizenship is the 2011 Nationality Act, which in its Article 8 stipulates the following eligibility requirements. 1. A person born before or after this act has entered into force shall be considered a South Sudanese national by birth if such person meets any of the following requirements. Any parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents of such a person on the male or female line were born in South Sudan, or such a person belongs to one of the indigenous ethnic communities of South Sudan. Secondly, a person shall be considered a South Sudanese national by birth if at the time of the coming into force of this act, A, he or she has been domiciled in South Sudan since 1956, or if any of his or her parents or grandparents have been domiciled in South Sudan since 1956. Thirdly, a person born after the commencement of this act, and that is in 2011, shall be a South Sudanese national by birth if his or her father or mother was a South Sudanese national by birth or naturalization at the time of birth of such a person. A person who is or was the first found in South Sudan as a deserted infant of unknown parents shall, until the contrary is proved, be deemed to be a South Sudanese national by birth. One of the topics that we will discuss is some of the difficulties in acquiring South Sudanese citizenship. When it comes to the practical implementation of the law, sources reported that the legal framework does not provide any definition of the indigenous ethnic communities of South Sudan. A study published by the Open Society Foundation identified various population groups at risk of being negatively affected by the law, including people with one parent from South Sudan and one from Sudan, members of traditional migrant and pastoralist communities, as well as people belonging to cross-border ethnic groups. Now, before we start our discussion, as I said earlier, I would like to introduce the panel of lovely ladies that we have here who volunteered to sit with us and have this discussion and clarify some issues for the public in general. And before I actually introduce them as well, I would like to say to the people out there, the public, that let's keep this a very informative discussion and a clean one. No direct personal attacks to anybody, no use of, or basically I would say no attacks to individuals based on current affairs, if any. So I will start with Dr. Juliana Ball, Juliana Ball has a PhD in public health systems from the Department of International Health at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, and Masters in Public Health in Forced Migration and Health from the Department of Population and Family Health from the University of Columbia Mainman School of Public Health. She is currently the Senior Advisor for Research and Learning at Child Fund International, based in Washington, D.C. Juliana worked in South Sudan between 2009 and 2014, primarily in monitoring and evaluation, and as a quality advisor for USAID-funded maternal and child health primary care programs. She worked closely with the Ministry of Health and various partners to develop performance assessment standards for health workers in the areas of infection prevention, prenatal and antenatal care, normal labor and delivery, and emergency obstetric and newborn care. She has also contributed to the development of family planning and reproductive health policy for South Sudan. Juliana Ball, welcome to the discussion. I will go to Miss Lily Basoronga. I am sorry if, please, I request you to correct me if I pronounce your name incorrectly. Miss Lily Basoronga graduated from the University of Birmingham with master's degree in international relations and gender in UK in 2016, and Cavendish University, Uganda, with bachelor's degree in business administration and procurement in 2013. She also obtained a certificate of mental health from University of Southern Maine in Portland, Maine. Ms. Lily is a gender and mental health specialist. She has more than 10 years of experience as a humanitarian worker in South Sudan and about 3 years in mental health. She advocates for people with mental health to integrate into the community and start living a normal life like any other person in the community, free of stigma. Ms. Lily currently works as an office manager. Ms. Lily, please say hi to our audience and welcome to the discussion.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Our next panelist is Captain Iel Daoud Lokirimoy. Captain, can we see you? Captain Iel is an information management specialist with 10 years work experience in both the private and public sector and international development agency. She is a graduate of computer science studies and holds a bachelor's degree in information technology. Iel started her professional journey in 2011 as a technical expert at the Directorate of Nationality, Passports and Immigration after graduating from the university. She was then appointed to the rank of first lieutenant in the first batch of trained immigration officers, and after 2 years of service, she was promoted to the rank of captain. Hi, Captain Yale. In 2015, Captain Yale decided to expand her career and dive into the NGO sector. She got a job with Vistas, a USAID-funded project implemented by AECOM International in South Sudan as an information specialist tasked with the management of the program activity database. Captain Yale is currently working for DT Global as a program associate based in Washington, D.C. She oversees day-to-day home office program management support to the Sheja Salam program in South Sudan, a follow-on program of the Vistas program. Captain Yale is a self-motivated, energetic, and confident individual. She loves outdoor activities and occasionally takes a walk in the wild to enjoy the wonderful beauty of nature. Yale believes that for the right thing to happen to us, we must make the right choices in life. Welcome, Captain Yale. I go to, and whom, yes, I see you. Miss Caroline Kibos, a lawyer with a passion for peace building, governance, transitional justice, and security sector reforms. She supported local level peace initiatives in South Sudan and refugee camps in Uganda and Ethiopia. She also actively supported civil society during the high-level revitalization forum in Addis Ababa and continues to participate in different policies that play great roles in shaping public policies. Caroline works as the National Associate for the Resource and Support Hub and is a legal officer for the Center for Inclusive Governance, Peace and Justice. She is a co-coordinator of the South Sudan Society Forum, a member to both the Women Coalition and Youth Coalition and the representation of the youth to the reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission. Ms. Kibo strongly supports women and youth participation in and inclusion in the implementation of revitalized peace agreement and all other processes. She is committed to women empowerment and emancipation from cultural and social barriers that hinder full participation of women in public life. Welcome, Caroline Kivos. We had one more panelist whom we hope to join us later as we continue with the program. This is Captain Justin Kenyi. If she doesn't done, we will look into other options. I give this opportunity or I give the panelists a minute to, if they need to say something, maybe I made a mistake somewhere before we kick off to our questions. All is okay? So now the honors is on Dr. Juliana Ball. I will start with our first question for the day. Dr. Juliana, do the South Sudanese diaspora have the right to get the South Sudanese nationalities? What are the pros and cons of having dual citizenship?
So this is a really good question because I think it very much depends on the country in which you first have your nationality. And I'll give an example of Kenya. Prior to the amendment of the constitution in Kenya, if you had Kenyan citizenship like I did, you would not be able to claim South Sudanese citizenship unless you gave away your Kenyan citizenship. So for a lot of Kenyans before the amendment in 2010, if they got citizenship of another country, then they would have to essentially give back their Kenyan citizenship and only claim one citizenship. However, the law changed to allow for dual nationality. So for most South Sudanese in the diaspora, if you're in the United States or in Canada or Australia, Kenya now, and other countries, if the country you are living in, residing in, and the country that grants you nationality allows for dual citizenship, you are allowed to have South Sudanese citizenship. As far as I understand, the South Sudan constitution also allows for dual citizenship. So for a lot of us South Sudanese whose parents left the country before independence or during the war, we certainly are allowed to come back to South Sudan and apply for your nationality and your passport. So in terms of can South Sudanese and should South Sudanese from the diaspora come back and claim their South Sudanese citizenship, I would say yes, they should. The procedures might be a little bit complicated, and I think part of what we will be discussing today are some of those complications that we have experienced. But also for South Sudanese in the diaspora, I think it is also important to claim the citizenship of the country you reside in if you can. And this is, I want to speak specifically for especially the South Sudanese who came to the United States in the 90s or the 2000s, because as we know, the immigration laws keep changing. And so if you still have your permanent residency or your conditional residency, you are subject to deportation if the laws change or if you commit certain federal crimes or etc. So getting your nationality in the country you reside in protects you because you have a lot more rights than you would have if you didn't have that citizenship. So the answer is yes. South Sudanese in the diaspora certainly should get the citizenship of the countries in which they reside in, and they certainly do have a right to come to South Sudan and claim their nationality, because most of us left not because of our own volition, but because of circumstances or because our parents left. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Dr. Ari. Now, what I would say is basically yes, it is allowed, but within the bound, I would say within the boundaries of law, it has to be legal, it has to be acceptable, or for both countries. Correct?
Essentially, yes. And the reason I gave the example of Kenya is that if I came to South Sudan in 2009, if I had gone through the process of claiming South Sudanese citizenship in 2009, I would have had to give back my Kenyan passport. So, and of course, we know that South Sudan has certain requirements, or you have to prove that you are South Sudanese to get South Sudanese passports. So countries that do not allow for dual citizenship, you are risking your current existing nationality if you come and claim South Sudanese citizenship. But most countries are moving towards allowing their citizens to have dual citizenship in the first place. So yeah, it's all about the laws.
It is. Thank you very much. I would like to ask Captain EL a question that maybe I jumped the gun a bit and went ahead and asked about dual citizenship. But could you just briefly give us the role of immigration, passports, and nationality, and how does one qualify to become a citizen of South Sudan? Just a few parameters on what you need to fulfill to become a South Sudanese citizen.
Thank you for that question. Well, there is two ways of becoming a South Sudanese national. One is by birth, of which your ancestors or your parents, it's a nation, South Sudanese citizen, are born and raised. Historically, they've been living in South Sudan. And also the other one can be by naturalization, maybe by marriage, if you're married to a South Sudanese national, or the president might grant you South Sudanese citizenship in a situation where you have done some very valuable work for the nation or for South Sudanese. So what is required in terms of the migration, Directorate of Migration is normally the birth certificate. Is just the proof that you're born in South Sudan. And then we have the blood sample that we normally also consider as just for you for us to know your blood type, maybe in relation to your parents as well. And then the other process is the form where you acquire the application forms, and then after filling out the forms, you go through the verification and the investigation. So your birth certificate actually is one of the important proof or one of the qualification that we normally consider, or that it helps us determine whether you're a South Sudanese or not. Because by birth, it means you should have your birth certificate, or unless if it's by marriage, you should have like the marriage certificate as well. And also by if it's been granted by the president, there is also a different process for us for that for acquiring nationality by that process. But normally it's the birth certificate that initiate the process or that determine the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. But there's this interesting fact or interesting piece of detail. If you look at some of us who are born a few, may say before the 2000 or something like that, or even this is something that is going on as we talk of. Most of us were born, if you see most South Sudanese were born on 1st of January, whichever year, all of us are 1st of January. And this brings us to the question of the birth certificate. In South Sudan, I believe as of now, there is no birth certificates as such. What I have seen a lot is first they do what they call the assessment of age. And this could be one of the issues as well, because we are not getting registered at birth. So who is verifying this information? This brings the question of citizenship by birth becomes a bit easy to question, because anybody can walk into, I believe it was done in the Ministry of Health, where you go and they assess and declare that you're supposed to be around this age if you're born, maybe by a doctor determines how by your looks or how old you look, and you're given an age and 1st of January, whichever year. So this is one issue that we will need to discuss. And see probably someone to give us answers on how best this very important document, this issue with a very important document, can be handled in South Sudan. But I would like to just quickly go to I will circle back to this later, but I would like to quickly go back to I would like to go to Miss Caroline and just ask her on the issue of foreigners. This has been going on. This is something that has been discussed a lot in social media. South Sudanese are complaining, or people are complaining, that foreigners are getting the nationality outside due process, which is, you have explained to us, getting citizenship is through birth and naturalization. Okay, so in this case, what is the due process? Caroline, let's talk about this. Is there any loophole in the law that enables them to acquire the nationality certificate without deserving it? And what does the law say about becoming a citizen of South Sudanese? And this, in particular, I'm talking of foreigners, people who clearly we know they are not South Sudanese by birth, if I can put it that way. Caroline Kibos, to you.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, as we said, yes, we in the law we are allowed to be citizens in two instances. First by birth, and then by naturalization. But then, if you see under the category of birth, there are very many ways in which you can prove that you're a citizen by birth. If it comes to the issue of foreigners having nationality outside the due process, yes, I would agree with you. Although I wouldn't say there is such a big loophole, but it's just that what can I say? It's just that some of them pay heavily to get these nationalities. You can actually, if you sit around Juba, you know Juba is a place where there are no rumors. If you sit around Juba, some of them would actually attest to you that they had to pay heavily to get those certificates, and then some of them. Of course, that's outside the due process. And then I don't know how to put this, but some of them actually use other South Sudanese, because if you're going to get the nationality, you're asked to bring a witness, right? So if you're going to get a witness, you need someone who is South Sudanese, who knows you, okay, whose name at least there is some similarity between your name and theirs. So some of these people get the nationality through our own South Sudanese that stand in for them as witnesses. And so there, I wouldn't blame the officers or the people in charge, because if I come with my witness, of course, I know that you're supposed to have there is a CID department there that's supposed to follow up and investigate all these things. But because people are relaxed, and then implementation of the laws are also relaxed, and because of the money factor and all these things, so these people actually don't get to do their work of investigating further and knowing that, okay, this is this person's witness and maybe this is not true. So this is how some of them also get to be nationals. And then there is also an issue of the border tribes. I Although sometimes people don't want to talk about this, but the border tribes also, you find that it's hard to differentiate between, for example, the Mahdi of Uganda and the Mahdi of South Sudan. So it's very easy for the Mahdi of Uganda to cross to South Sudan and get nationality, because we have Mahdi in South Sudan, and then they can claim there. These days there are a lot of claims that keep on happening. So that's how you find that there are some nationals who get into the system. But the ones who know about the law, of course, they go through the naturalization process, which is also sometimes it's cumbersome. And then maybe people don't know that actually the naturalization, you can become a citizen through a spouse. So if you're married to a South Sudanese, whether you're male or female, if you're married to a South Sudanese national, you can become a national after 5 years, after proving that you've been married for 5 years from the date of you applying for the citizenship. So yes, there is that, and I know, and then yes, I also agree that some of the nationals, most of them get citizenship outside the process. They don't follow the due process to the nationality.
No, but I pick on the fact that they are a few issues here and there, and I picked on corruption. Let's call a spade from what you said. The people actually pay to either do things in incorrect manner or shorten the process for themselves. So that is an issue. And I picked on one thing that will lead me to my next question, and this will go to Lillian. To Lily, sorry. My question to you, basically, what I gathered from Caroline is, and which is actually what is happening, that you are required to have a witness when you're applying for citizenship. And in this case, now this brings us to the question of women. And I would say that we are not culprits in this case, because we are not allowed in the process to actually do this. We are not allowed to witness anybody. So my question to you, Lily, is that many women in South Sudan claim that the process of acquiring the nationality of South Sudan is very difficult for women as part of gender discrimination. Do you agree with this? And please, if you could give us a bit of explanation, as well as Lily. Women are not allowed to witness nationality of anyone, including their own children. Is this fair? Do you think this is part of the Sudan culture that we have, we have inherited, and we continue to subject women to some kind of Sharia law or the Islamic law? What do you think should be done to rectify this? Lily, to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bonnie. Absolutely, you're right, and I totally agree that it's gender discrimination right there. Before I go further, I would like to explain, give a background on the nationality matters in South Sudan. It's actually the discrimination between women and men in nationality matters is a variance with international human rights law. Article 9 of the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women guarantees women's equality with respect to accusation, change of their nationality, and their ability to confer nationality on their children. The International Convention on Civil and Political Rights and other treaties also addresses the issue. Coming to nationality laws of the South Sudan do not provide equal rights to women in nationality matters. This discriminatory element of previous nationality laws was inherited from Sudan by then, which was purely taken from Syria or Islamic law. The constitution has to be reformed to ensure equality between men and men in nationality matters in South Sudan. In Sudan, when we look back in 1994, Nationality Act provides that all children born in Sudan whose male ancestors were residing in Sudan since 1956 acquire Sudanese nationality. After 1994, the act granted citizenship to children born to father who was a Sudanese national by descent. The law was amended in 2005 to allow child born to Sudanese mother to acquire Sudanese nationality by birth by following the application process. This previous from the 1994 Act are the variants with Article 7 of the interim Sudanese constitution that guarantees that every person born to Sudanese mother or father shall have natural rights and to enjoy Sudanese nationality and citizenship. After the creation of the independent state of South Sudan, the Republic of Sudan amended its nationality law in 2011, but has yet to amend the relevant section of the 1994 Act. The interim Sudanese constitution remains in force until Sudan adopts criminal constitution. With this, it brings a big discrimination to women in South Sudan. Though you find it's actually law has been amended and women are allowed to go through the process of nationality like any other person in the country. But in reality, is you don't see it actually in South Sudan. I would take an example of myself in 2006. That was when I actually got my first nationality. They call it Jinsia. I traveled from Yambio to Juba, and we were about 4 people. Out of 4, I was the only female. So when we went to immigration to get the documents, all the 3 guys were approved and they got their nationality in the same day. But me, I was denied because when I was coming, I didn't know that I was supposed to come with my father or with my uncle that bears the same name. So I was actually very stranded in Juba, and instead of maybe doing the process within 2 to 3 days, it had to cost me like 2 weeks because I had to look for somebody who was a male bearing my name. And it was very challenging. I was like, oh, you guys, my dad died. I'm a South Sudanese, born in South Sudan. So is there anything that actually prevent me from getting it? They said no, because you have to get your father or a male relative who bears the same name for you to acquire the citizenship. And that was when I found that, oh, there's a discrimination here, because how comes that the 3 guys we came with them, they never came with their parents, but they were given the right to get their nationality, and yet I was denied. And I requested them if I could come in with my auntie who lived in Juba, but they said, no, she's a female. She cannot stand for me. I have to come with a male. And it was actually very challenging. And that's what so many women go through. It was not only me who went through that. And if you look at the constitution, it's written very well that South Sudanese have to go through the process like any other person, and you can get it by bringing your relative who is a male. But when you go there, at times it's very, very challenging for us female to try to understand why we are denied, and yet we were born in South Sudan from both parents who are South Sudanese. So I totally agree that it's a gender discrimination against women, because we are not allowed, and yet we have the right to the nationality or to the citizenship in the country. Back
That's
to
true.
you.
This really begs the big question that a woman is only identified if she's linked to a man or to a male somewhere for you to to have some kind of identity in South Sudan, which is very strange. I would like to just throw this to Dr. Juliana Ball. Um, with this, we're doing in South Sudan, we're doing it in the ethnic. You have to be identified by somebody, like she said. You have to be linked to a male somewhere. You have to present a male from your clan or from your people to come and witness you for you to be able to get a nationality or citizenship document. But Juliana, you have experience in Kenya, like
Excuse me, Pori, can I go to, I think you asked question number 2 as well. Can I go to 2 before she comes in?
Okay, no problem. And that would be, why do you think that women are not allowed to witness a nationality?
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think in most cases, as we know, our belief and our cultural norms in South Sudan, women are actually considered not to be like, I call it this inequality right there, because they think women, we don't have right to own children. So it's only male who own the children. Even if the children is ours, they still say, oh, you are just a mother who carried the child, but the child does not belong to you. The child is belong to man, which actually brings in when you come into they think we may run with the child, which is not true, and in most cases a man can do the same. At times we find that if a man gives birth to a child, and if he's not responsible, at times we have seen that many times that there are men even who steal children and run away with them. But if you look at it that critically, that we don't, they say no, because traditionally the kids does not belong to us, because we don't pay dowry, because men pays dowry to have us, and that's why we give birth to kids, and those kids are not ours. Then those beliefs actually prevent us, because it's deep rooted into a South Sudanese culture that women are seen as a third class in the country. They don't consider to own anything. That's why when it comes to even to an asset, you don't have voice. When there's anything to do with asset, which is also including the children, you're not supposed to talk about the kids, even if they belong to you, because according to the culture, you belong to the man, but the man does not belong to you, as well as the children belongs to a man, but not to a woman. So they actually don't trust us, and with the beliefs that we have that women are nothing, women are just housewives. So that's why you find that we are not allowed, even when it comes to standing for our own children. We are not allowed to stand for them, or we are not supposed to represent them as women according to our culture. And these norms actually is really killing us silently. And you find that at times women cannot stand up and speak for their right in most cases. And this culture actually was borrowed. If you look at the constitution we have right now, it's just like copy and paste, because that was the same was used in Sudan before, because according to the Islamic law, women were considered to be the third class, and women were not supposed to own children. It's the other way around. And when you look at the constitution, it is exactly the same thing that we say we don't want. Is the same thing that was copy and paste, as the same thing that we still use in South Sudan. And I think we need to really, our government need to look into this, that we are all human beings. The kids, we women, we carry kids in our womb for 9 months with no men. So how comes that we don't have right to speak or to stand for our children? There's no way we cannot, like, uh, in terms of nationality, there's no way we can come in and say, oh, this is my child, and I have to apply. I have the right, like any other man, to apply for the nationality for my child, because I have the right. It's me who carry the child in the womb. But because the law is like copy and paste, and in Islamic, it's not allowed for a woman to go and stand up and talk in public. And that's the same thing they brought it to South Sudan, and continuously until they amend that constitution to give the equal rights for both men and women towards the children. Over to you.
Thank you, Lily. It is true. Women are actually considered as property, if I can call that, or inferior to men. And basically, this is reflected in the laws that we currently have in the land. Thank you very much once again. I would like to move quickly to Dr. Juliana Ball, and for her to just give us some examples of processes or where you think would be the best way of things to be done for people to acquire nationality. I will rephrase the question. What are the best international practices of acquiring citizenship? Maybe you give us examples linked to Kenya or the USA, or you can pick one of the two in the interest of time.
So there are two main ways of acquiring citizenship by birth, for example. There's what we call Jasoli laws and Sanguini's laws. Jasoli laws are similar to what happens in the United States, where if you're born in this country, you're automatically an American citizen. Sanguini's laws are what we have in Kenya and in South Sudan. And just to go back to the point that Ms. Lily made about mothers' rights in terms of administering or transmitting their citizenship. This was similar in Kenya. I think these are laws from the colonial era, the British era, where it was only the father who could give citizenship to their child, not the mother. So until the law changed, which allowed Kenyan women to also be able to accord citizenship to their child. So there's the matter of culture, but there's the matter of the law. So we have those two main processes of transmitting citizenship to children, which is the law of the soil, just soli. If you're born on this land, then you are a citizen automatically. And just sanguini, which is the law of the blood, which means that you have to prove either an ethnic identity or blood ties, i.e. one of your parents should be a citizen of that country. The more stricter definition is where it says only the father can transmit citizenship. In Morocco, and I know this because one of my friends has a Moroccan child, it is the opposite. It is the mother who transmits citizenship to their child, not the father. So again, the law is basically about blood ties to the child. There are other practices, and this was mentioned. You can acquire citizenship by marriage as well. And so if you marry a spouse who's a citizen of a particular country, and again, depending on which country, it could mainly restrict either it's the husband who's the citizen, and in some countries it's either the husband or the wife who's a citizen, and you can acquire their citizenship in that way. Those typically have residency requirements, so you have to have lived in that country or been married for a number of years before you can get that. Most of us South Sudanese know that most of us in the diaspora, when we acquired refugee status in certain countries, that put us on legal residency status. So in the United States, it is you're a permanent legal resident of the United States. And after 5 years or so, you have the ability to then acquire your citizenship. So that's, I think, the third one. One thing I wanted to mention is that even though the United States says it's a nation of immigrants, outside of citizenship by birth, outside of citizenship by permanent legal residency, i.e. Through marriage or acquiring it through refugee status, there are no other legal processes for getting naturalization. So in Kenya, if you live in Kenya legally for 7 years, you have the rights to become a naturalized Kenyan. That is not the same in the United States. I believe in South Sudan, we have naturalization laws as well. I'm not very familiar with them, but you can go through a process of becoming a naturalized South Sudanese. So those are the main, I think, factors of immigration. But as we all know, immigration is becoming a very contentious issue everywhere we live. The laws are becoming stricter and more restrictive. It's becoming harder to become a citizen. And I think when we were talking about South Sudanese acquiring citizenship, I think we focused on foreigners trying to get South Sudanese citizenship. I would like for us to also talk about how difficult it is for South Sudanese themselves, especially those South Sudanese who you walk into the migration office and they say you don't look South Sudanese. You cannot be South Sudanese. You're a Kenyan who's pretending to be South Sudanese. This happened to me when I was going to get that certificate of birth. The ladies there basically said, I'm either Kenyan or Ugandan. And the only way I acquired that certificate of birth, which was the first step of even going through the citizenship process was by bringing their boss, right? So you have to bring somebody who is powerful enough that they then will give you your basically rights. And the same thing happened when I went to the nationality office. Again, a very humiliating process where people are saying, you must be the girlfriend of this man you brought to witness who you are. You are pretending to be South Sudanese because I don't know what you're gaining from this. I wasn't trying to gain anything. I didn't have my job. I was hired as an international staff. So it wasn't about trying to get a job in South Sudan, but it was a 3-day process of trying to bring someone from a will, of things like, well, you cannot have a name that is from Equatoria and a name that is from Bargazal and claim that you're a citizen. That is not allowed in our culture. So you must be lying. I had to bring a diploma from college to show that these are actually my names. Here's my diploma from my master's, from my bachelor's degree that has the same names. And it was not until, again, I brought my uncle, who's very high ranking at the time, in government, that I did get my jinsia. And the only reason I was trying to get my jinsia was to vote for the referendum. So we can talk about foreigners coming to claim citizenship, but we should also talk about the fact that we make it very difficult for those of us who are not from the major tribes, those of us who are from the border tribes. Before the system or the process was decentralized to the regions, it was very difficult for an Equatorian to walk into that office in Juba town and try to get their citizenship. Even if they brought male relatives, the process was very, very complicated. I'm not sure how it is today. I hope that it is easier. But we can sit and talk about foreigners trying to claim South Sudanese, but we can also talk about South Sudanese who are having a very hard time claiming their citizenship. We sometimes talk about, well, maybe you're lying because it says in your birth certificate, in your certificate of birth registration, that you were born in South Sudan. But we don't talk about the fact that when you go to that office and you say, I was born in Kenya, but I want to claim my South Sudanese citizenship, they told me I had to put I was born in a will, even though I said I was not born in a will. So now somebody can say, if I got my citizenship and I have a Kenyan birth certificate and I have this paper from immigration that says born in a will, that I'm lying. But I'm not lying. This is what I had to do to get that. So I think we can discuss, yes, foreigners getting South Sudanese citizenship, but we should also discuss how difficult we're making the process for those of us coming from the diaspora, or those of us who don't look typically South Sudanese, who are trying to get our legal right. And we can also talk about how difficult it is for those of us from the diaspora, just interacting day to day in Juba, the streets of Juba or wherever, where you hear a lot of times people telling you you're not South Sudanese. Yeah, you're lying about being South Sudanese. So we come to South Sudan trying to claim, because we come from the diaspora, not having belonged to any country, and trying to come to a country where we feel like this is where we have every legal right to belong to. And we have a very, very difficult time. I have spent an hour and a half detained at Juba airport because they wanted to deport me to Kenya, because they said I was lying about being South Sudanese. So these are the types of things that we need to discuss as well. The fact that we do have laws, but the application of the law is very different. And there is what I would call a lot of hostility towards those who don't look typically South Sudanese. And that's problematic.
And that is a really horrible. Thank you very much. That is a really horrible misconception, because South Sudanese, we're more than 60 tribes, if I'm not wrong. I would say we're different people. We look different. We have the short ones. We have the dark people. We have our people from the western side who are light and short. We a mix, of different people. So the typical South Sudanese that people think are like the tall and dark really doesn't apply to all of us. And that brings me also to the question, or to the discussion on people who are from the border areas, and the people from diaspora, as you said before. I personal experience of having gone to get my jinsia, and I'm being asked to speak in my mother tongue, and I was with with a cousin. Okay, good enough for me. I can speak my mother tongue, but then for my cousin who was born outside the country, who was not exposed to our language, she had it really tough to get her documentation. I'm taking you back to the discussion on the people from diaspora and the border areas, and I would like to hear from Captain Iyal. I want to throw a few questions to you, Captain Yal, and just let me know what you pick on and what we can be able to answer to us. The border people, what are the steps or what are people doing or the Directorate of Immigration doing to find I would call a dignified way of verifying the citizenship or the belonging of people from the border areas, as well as people who are coming from the diaspora, because okay, yes, most South Sudanese will go out there, they'll come back speaking their language, but it's not a must that you would be speaking your language. You've come back from diaspora, probably a young person who wants to come home and be a part of nation building. You do not know so many people to come and witness you, or maybe people who are supposed to have same names like yourself. So what is the directorate doing to verify such situations or such people when they're getting the nationality? Besides that, Captain, I would like also to know, or maybe we have had issues of people complaining of the processes when you're getting your citizenship. A few things, basically maybe the slowness of getting documentations done. People who are outside Juba apparently not able to get access to documentation. Some of his documentations have to be printed in Juba. What is the directorate doing about this? Sorry, you are on mute.
Oh.
Okay, now we're good.
Okay, thank you. So let me go first to your first question regards to the people of the borderline community. So by law, they have the option to choose either becoming a citizen of either country. So they have the option to choose that, and it's not our job as the immigration people to prove whether you are a South Sudanese or not, but it's based on the documentations or the paper and the backups that you presented to the immigration that determines whether you are a South Sudanese or you are not a South Sudanese. And the best option, the best consideration that we normally consider is just when applying or when filling that form, you need to fill the exact detail as where you're from, your mothers, or the Boma or the Payam that you are coming from. So it's not really, we don't have a specific consideration or specific law that we approach the borderline community. They also go through the same process that any other individual South Sudanese is actually following, which is filling the form, which is acquiring your birth certificate, and also having the witness. One of the best options is when you're coming, you should come with the chief of that community to be a witness, because the chief, they normally have the history of that place. So having the chief as your representative or a recommendation from your chief, it's a very valuable document to help us determine, because there is a trust between the government or the immigration to the chiefs, and there's a very high respect to the chief. Based on the recommendation from the chief, that's enough trust for the immigration people actually to be like, okay, yes, this is a South Sudanese. So it's not really it's not really a specific consideration, because they are South Sudanese. They just happen to be in the border, and we cannot deny them that they are not. The challenges that we are facing actually, or the questions like what Julian is saying, that is because there's a lack of training. When South Sudan immigration was started, there was not enough training, and there were people prior to immigration becoming separate from the South Sudan government. There were people prior working there, and they continue working there. So they came with that same mentality, or they just adapt that same laws and regulation and just transition to South Sudan without actually learning our laws, without reading our laws, and without taking our laws into consideration. So these are some of the challenges that we're facing, because we just adapt to a different laws that is not ours. And also it's just because of lack of training. I myself have also experienced so many challenges in the immigration, especially when I travel to Uganda and coming back. When I come back, because I'm not well familiar with my colleagues at the borderline, sometimes I'm also facing that question of, are you really a Sudanese, South Sudanese? And I have to present my ID as an immigration officer, which is very, very, very embarrassing. So those challenges, just lack of training and understanding our laws, reading our laws, and just applying our laws. And that is something that I recommend, or also I suggest that the directorate need to take it seriously. And also, because this is the immigration is under the General Police Department, and there's always reshuffles. There is always people coming from the General Police to the immigration, and these people come with a very different mentality. They are not really aware that even though the Directorate of Immigration is under police, it's also it's separate. It has its own law within the police. It has its passport law, it has its nationality law, and before actually becoming an immigration officer, it's very important to understand this law and it strictly stick to our laws. Let me just add a little bit about, or just let me put a clarity on what Lillian was saying about the discrimination of the female. Our law is stated very clearly not to discriminate. Our nationality law and passport law state clearly not to discriminate, whether it's female or whether it's a male. The witness is supposed to be it's stated in our passport or nationality law that it's supposed to be a next of kin. A next of kin can be your mother, can be your father, can be anybody. It's not discriminatory, but then it's just the same. We don't know our law. We don't read our law. We don't apply our law. I have witnessed so many people, especially from where I come from. We are also in the borderline community. My people faced a lot of problems. They come to immigration. When I was there, my presence actually helped them a lot, because they will call me at times, hey, come, we got someone here who is a Didinga and we don't know. So when I come, I talk to this person, I acknowledge, I'm like, yes, this person is from my tribe. So it's a general problem. It's a general challenge, just because we don't understand our law and we do not apply our law. And they allow me to witness that person as a female because they know me. I worked in immigration, and they basically, just because they know me. But it's not supposed to be discriminative. Is we don't understand and we just adapt. Sorry for taking your time. Let me just say.
No problem. No problem. So basically, the law allows for females to witness someone who wants to get the citizenship. Yes. But in this case, because so many of us have gone through this issue of you being asked to bring a male to come and witness you. So that means that basically we do not know what our rights are, or we do not know what the law is. So this is being taken advantage of.
Yes.
Correct?
Let me reference the law. It says a recommendation from your next of kin or any related organization or any related relative. It did not say it should be a female. It did not say it should be a male. It did not say it should be a male from your mother's side, because that's also from your father's side, because that's also a challenge. They even go to sometimes I hear people facing these challenges that I am required to bring a male from my father's side, if not my father, which is not true. It's just say a next of kin. And a next of kin, by definition, can be your father, can be your mother. It can also be your uncle, someone who is a custodian, or who is your next of kin.
That is great. Now, what we do maybe later in the program, can we share this section of the law so that the audience can know they can have something to refer to in the future if they face such issues?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for clarifying on that. There's something else that you hadn't answered for me. I asked you about the issues that are being faced, especially regarding documentation, how slow things are. The assumption is there are no properly trained people in IT who are able to work on this. I believe you have an IT background. Correct? Yeah. So basically, where is the problem? Because getting your nationality in South Sudan or in Juba or in the other states is a problem. So where is the issue? Is it lack of training? Is it lack of resources or technology, if I can call it that? And what is the directorate doing about it?
Can you rephrase again your question, please?
Okay. I will read it out. Can we say that the slow processing of documents in the Directorate of Immigration, Passports and Nationality is attributed to the IT department? Or do we have many and qualified IT specialists in the Directorate who can produce timely documents? I don't want to tie this only to the human resource. I also want to know, do we have an issue with the, let's say, equipment, okay, or proper training of the human resource? So where is the issue? And the other thing is the immigration offices at the state level. We believe that, or we know that they have to come and print out documentations in Juba. Can they? Is it that they do not have the equipment as well? Can they do it at the state level?
Okay, let me go to your first question. So the first question is the slow process is not, I cannot say it's majorly contributed to the ICT department, because the process actually is inclusive of different department. It's starting from acquiring the form and then going through the verifications and then going through the approval process, and then you come to do the payment. So it's a different various sector that you have to go through before coming to the ICT. So coming to the ICT is start from the registration process. When you finalize with payment, then you come to the ICT process, to the ICT department, where you do the registration, and then you come to the enrollment. So within the ICT itself, it's not only just you do the registration and then immediately you go to production. There is also a different process and different ICT unit where this detailed information has to go through, where you have to be verified and you have to be enrolled, and then it goes to our internal database where we run a checkup for just to check criminal history, or where if this person has applied for the document before, and then it goes to the production. Now, in production, I think this is where a slight of delayed might happen. That is because also in the production department, there are other documents in waiting, especially the document from the states and also document from the embassies. So there is a little bit, I don't want to attribute it as to the ICT, but then there's a little bit of delay there because it also prioritized on first come, first serve. If there is a document in waiting from state, or if there is a document in waiting from the embassy, then maybe that enrollment or that application will be put on hold for a little bit of time. But it's not completely attributed to the ICT department. We face so many challenges, especially the ICT department. One of them is even internet. You know, there is a common slow internet in Juba is a common issue, and ICT department entirely depend on the internet. As slow internet can also be a challenge. When there is a slow internet, the ICT department go on shutdown sometime. But let me just say the noticeable delay that is just recently be happening is that just started recently is because there has been there has been let me put it in a very nice way. So the noticeable delay just started off recently when the directorate ran out of nationality card and also the booklet. It's a little bit of I don't want to put it's a little bit of a shame that a whole country ran out of passport or booklet card, but that's what just happened recently. They have worked on it, and some cards they are working on it to bring some cards back or some booklet back, which I believe very soon, or if not, the production has already been reinstated. But the main there are different stakeholders, or there are different players in the process, which we have to follow. We have to follow the process. You can't jump from application immediately to the production, and the internet issues, and also the booklet issues. Those are some of the challenges that did happen with the immigration. And so Juba is the main central location for all productions of passports and nationality from state and also from embassy. That is because to acquire those machines, it's very expensive, and also those machines are very hard to run in the state, as they require a lot of maintenance and services. That's why the directorate is actually using what we call a mobile kit that we use for enrollment and also registration, and those data are being saved into a token and sent to Juba for production. So that's mainly because of the cost. It's very, very expensive, and we have so many states that we cannot afford to have those machines in all the states. That's why Juba is the main production for all passports and nationality and all documentations.
Basically, Juba is the only production hub at the moment that you're working with. But besides the delays, there's also issue of there's been complaints of inaccuracy in the documentation or data for people who apply for citizenship. Where is the issue? Is it that because our data is input by a person?
Yes.
So where is the problem? Is it lack of training, or I don't know. Maybe you can elaborate on that. Where do we have the issue?
Yes, this is. I can definitely acknowledge that this is the lack of training of our staff, of the immigration staff, to ensure that the data that they're entering is actually it's correct and it's accurate. However, this is also majorly the responsibility of the applicants, and this is start when an applicants fill out the information in the application forms. If you go to the registration or the enrollment or the ICT department, which is the registration, you will see there is usually two displays. There is one display where the ICT person is working on, and then there's another display for the applicants. The reason for that display is that the applicant can also be able to see their data when the immigration officers is entering those data. That gives them the opportunity to also review and also see your data when being entered. And also before concluding those data, the immigration officer usually asks the applicant to confirm and to sign. And by confirming and signing, you're actually acknowledging that the information being input is correct. So you, as an applicant, you also have that opportunity. Make sure when you are asked to review your data, you go through your data, you compare it with your form. You also see and ensure that the name are correct. Our immigration officers normally ask, is your name correct? Is your date of birth is correct? Is like even screening of the assessment of age? Can you confirm this data? So this is a very good opportunity, and that display is intentional to also give you the opportunity not to have the blame to the immigration officer that this is mainly their oversight. So you, the applicant, also has that opportunity. You also have to ensure. I just want to acknowledge that this is our oversight. This is an oversight from an immigration officer. However, this is also an oversight from the applicants, because they have the opportunity to also confirm their detail. Thank you. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. So basically, it's double-edged from the applicant themselves,
yeah,
and the immigration officers, if you can say that. Now, we have identified a few issues here and there that we've had. Especially, we talked of the diaspora people, the people from the border towns, if we call it that. I want to know from you, Caroline, for example. are there any legal processes that I can take if I've been denied my citizenship, and I believe I'm South Sudanese and I've been denied, for example, they say you look Kenyan, like for example in the case of Juliana, you're told you're Kenyan and yet you know for sure you're South Sudanese, and then you're denied that. Are there any legal processes that you can take to ensure that, or to get your nationality, or are there any lawyers or organizations dealing with such cases? Where can people find them? To you, Caroline.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, it depends on what was the cause of your denial. Sometimes it's administrative. So, for example, if you notice it's a junior officer, before you can take any other action, you approach the senior officer within that department, because you need to exhaust all the avenues before you can take it outside the department. So for instance, if it's a junior officer, you then go to the senior officer, and in case you're still not yet helped, then you can actually petition to court for review of the decision as to why you are denied that your nationality. Now, when you reach court, there will be a process of investigation and all that. So now that's when they will establish whether the reason for your denial was valid or not. You can get lawyers to help you. There are some lawyers and there are also some organizations to help you. For the lawyers, we have some lawyers like, I don't know, you want me to mention the names of the lawyers?
Maybe we can, maybe 1, 2, and organizations would be best, actually, for people to follow.
Yeah, there are some organizations that do that, and also there are some private lawyers that do that within their law firms. So, for example, if you want the organizations, we have South Sudan Law Society, we have Advocates Without Borders, and then we have Lawyers for Human Rights. Those ones can be able to help you. And then we also have some lawyers like Wani Matthias. I don't know if maybe some people would know him, or you can actually ask around. There is Wani Matthias, there is Isa Muzamil, and then there is Victor Bula. So those ones will be able to help you with that.
And these are all based in Juba.
Yes, they are all based in Juba. But first, you can first exhaust the whatever you have within your limit. For example, if you approach a senior officer, if you're not satisfied with not being given a nationality, you approach a senior officer. If you think still you are not helped, that's when you can take it. You can have a petition for court to review that, and then you pray that you're given that your nationality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I would like to come to Lillian. You've been quiet in the discussion. Sorry for including you for some time. Let's have more specific discussion. Women, we have issues beyond. In South Sudan, the South Sudanese woman has problems from each and every corner. In our case here, a South Sudanese woman, I want to, for example, get nationality for my children, and I have a foreign father for my children. Now that probably it begs a few questions. One, my children probably will not look the typical South Sudanese. 2, I'm a woman who probably mistakenly we thought that needs to be witnessed by a man. So my question to you, women with children whom their fathers are foreigners are normally subjected to humiliation when they're trying to get nationality for their children, while the men do not have a similar problem. The men who have children with mothers who are foreigners have no issue getting nationality for their children. Now, do you think women were being discriminated against? And could you give us a few stories that you've heard about where women whom their children have been denied their rights to citizenship, or South Sudanese citizenship in particular, because of having foreign fathers and South Sudanese mothers? To you, Lily, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Pony. Thank you for the question. It's actually a reality, it's not a myth, and I love that question because I really witnessed a lot of it when I worked in the Ministry of Interior between 2011 and 2013. Women actually in South Sudan are going through a lot. and the discrimination, the gender discrimination is actually very high in our community, to be honest. It depends on who you get at immigration when you're working. Like when the captain said, the rules are well written, I don't dispute it, it's good. But when it comes to implementation, it's always not the case. Um, I'll give an example with this lady when I worked in interior. She had been coming to interior, and I didn't know why she was coming with a little boy. I think by then he was between 7 and 9, and of course he was not looking as a South Sudanese the way they say. I don't know how they put it. Like there's a specific way a South Sudanese should look, and I wonder why do we have 64 tribes, and why should the 64 tribes look the same? So this lady gave birth to this child before the independence 2011. And before she went to immigration to get document for this young handsome boy. They denied her several times. They asked her, she asked to apply through the interior, which she did, but she never had a chance for somebody to just schedule her appointment with the Minister of Interior. And she was in interior working every single day or every month, coming to schedule appointment with the minister. She could not succeed. Of course, uh, before you enter to the minister, you have to get the the bodyguards, and the bodyguards are all men. So she never had that chance, not until 2012. And I saw her just because of curiosity, and I was like, why is this woman here every day? And there's a lady, one of that's the office assistant, and she's like, Lily, this woman has a lot of problem, and she wants to see a minister, and they have never allowed her. And then I was like, what do you mean that they have never allowed her? Then I gave chance. I said, do you mind calling her to me? So when she came in, and the woman was actually crying, because one, they denied this poor boy. It's just 7 years. The life was so miserable. The woman could not even travel with this boy. He didn't have any opportunity to travel like any other child out of South Sudan, because he was denied a nationality, because the father was a Russian and the mother was a South Sudanese. And when this boy, the father actually came to work with an NGO, and the guy left, the mother did not even have any contact with this man. And they wanted this woman to bring the father of that boy to sign for his applications, which she could not get it. So the boy was growing very miserable, until when I had to schedule with her appointment. I had to talk to her, and I was like, okay, I'll try my part, which I did. But I don't know what happened, because after she met the minister, I didn't have chance to meet her, but I hope she got it. But otherwise, this lady was discriminated, the boy was discriminated. The lady was working, and she wanted to take the son to out of the country to go study in Kampala, but because the boy did not have the passport to travel, so she couldn't travel with this boy, because they needed somebody to testify for him on behalf of the father, for him to get application. Yes, the process says uh, a mother can apply, but when it comes to reality, go to that custom, it's not always the same. It's a reality, it's not just a myth. And depending on who you get, that's why it's good for our government to bring in more women who understand what women go through. Once you meet a man, he's not going to handle you the same your counterpart will handle you. The woman understands, she will take you through the process. She will tell you this is what we need. And this is not the case. And hence, this child is subjected to be a stateless child. The child is subjected to trauma. And why do we subject kids? Kids has a right to why they were born, to have the citizenship, to have the ID. They have right like any other child, because the mother did not choose, first of all, to give birth to this child in South Sudan. So this is really a very, very big problem within our community. And I have so many women who have gone through that, because even if they ask you that you have to go through the process, at times, like for this young boy, the father was a Russian, and he didn't have any Russian in South Sudan. But he had the mother, and they said no, she has to bring a Russian to justify for this boy to become a South Sudanese. So I still, we don't deserve this. Our children don't deserve this, because they are kids born in South Sudan like any other person in South Sudan. They deserve to have that citizenship. The mother deserves to apply for their kids. They should not go actually through that torture. They should not discriminate because of the color, or because maybe you are short, because you are tall. I think people need to understand that God created us differently. And again, we are 64 tribes. It's not only one tribe in South Sudan. They should treat everyone equally like any other person. And just like the captain was saying, maybe the officer at times, they really don't, they lack that technical way of handling people. They even don't have maybe access to those documents, like the constitution. They don't go through, they don't understand the language within that constitution. At times they find it very hard to explain to these poor ladies, because some women, they don't read. They don't even know how to write their names. If you don't write for them their correct name, they don't know. So they really need somebody who will be able to simplify whatever process it is to these women, because these kids, they deserve the right like any other. Why only men? And you see that when men give birth to a child whose mother is not a South Sudanese, within an hour, that child will have a passport. But when I go in, it's going to take me century. And at the end, if I don't have anyone to justify, my son or my daughter become a stateless child, which frustrates the child, and you don't know the future of this child. This child is a South Sudanese, born in South Sudan. You never know the child you ignore will be a leader tomorrow in South Sudan. Any child deserves to have that right of citizenship, has right to live like any other child in a free environment. Back to you.
Thank you, Lily. But as Captain said earlier, the laws are there, and the laws are not supposed to be discriminatory. But unfortunately, most of us do not have access to this information, or we do not ask for it, or even the people who are sitting in the offices, some of them, I could say that some of them do not really have a good grasp of the law. So it is unfortunate that I walk into an office and I will be at the mercy of someone's mood. That should not be the case. I should be able to, yeah, it's really not right. I should be able to go there knowing that Robina needs to put in this information, and I'm good. Okay, not someone deciding today Robina needs to come with the father or the grandfather, and somebody else is fine with Robina bringing Captain to witness her. So this is one thing that also maybe the directorate should take into consideration, is building the capacity of its human resource, or how they handle people who are coming to apply for this documentation. We have very little time. I would like to maybe jump into one thing, and more or less keeping on the discrimination part of this whole situation, and basically towards the women. And this, Caroline, please, what do you think about the fact that women in South Sudan are not allowed to travel with children without the approval of their fathers? Now, it is a reality in society that I could be, unfortunately, widowed. I could be, unfortunately, a single parent by desire, or something went wrong. It does happen that you could be a parent on your own, or if I was a single parent, getting authorization from the father for me to travel with the child. There are dynamics to that make one cause delay, or cause some kind of stress, or whatever it is, or just discomfort in the whole situation. So, Caroline, to you, my question is, what do you think of the fact that women in South Sudan are not allowed to travel with their children without the approval of their fathers? And could this be regarded as human rights violation? And what steps should women take in order to abolish this practice, and for them to be seen having rights over their children as well? So what can we do as women? What can we do?
Well, number one, on the issue of having to get approval or permission from husbands, from fathers of children to travel with the children, I think that's I'm looking for a good word. I don't want to use a very bad word. I think that's nonsense. Because you cannot say you want approval from the father of my child for me to travel with my own child. And then when the man is traveling, they don't seek my approval as the mother of the child. That's discriminatory, and that's totally against our constitution that gives equal rights to both the woman and the man. I actually don't see it in any of the laws. It's not in the constitution, it's not in the Nationality Act, it's not even in the Immigration Act. It's in none of these things talks about this. It's only in the regulations, but also in the regulations, it's not stated expressly that the woman should come with a witness or to get approval. Normally, they actually ask for a witness, something to witness. But I still think that our interpretation of that is really poor because we make it seem like the woman has no right over her child. That's how we interpret that, of which it's not intended to discriminate against women or to make it seem like a woman is not supposed to travel with her child. It's just I think the intention of that was supposed to protect against child trafficking, but because we are so much um, we are so much copying a lot of things from Sudan. It's until last year that Sudan accepted women to travel without approval, with their children without approval from their husbands. So we've just copied that thing from Sudan and we are trying to use it. Maybe because we were Sudanese for a long time, so we thought everything from Sudan was good. So we copied that provision from Sudan to bring it here. And then one thing that I have seen is a loophole or something that is really to our disadvantage is that we do not have the regulations. Just the way you can now access the acts and the constitution is not the same way you can access the regulations. If you want the regulations, you have to go manually to these people's offices and you ask for a copy of which you will not even be given. You see, we have this tendency whereby if you go to an office and you ask for these laws, they are not going to give you. In fact, you might come out of there with a lot of insults, saying that you people are the ones who are like Hawajat and you blah blah and all these things. You want you're having a lot of things. You don't have time. Why would you want even to look at these things and all these things? So number one is these regulations need to be made available to the public so that we all know what they talk about. It should not be, because at the end of the day, ignorance of the law is not defense. So if you don't want me to be ignorant of the law, I have to, whenever I want to access the law, it should be easily accessible to everyone. So that's the first thing that we should do. We should make ourselves aware of all of these laws so that our rights are not just simply taken from us. So the first thing we need to do is we need to be knowledgeable about some of these things that are happening. So we should all be, we need to have a kind of advocacy to tell these people in power that these regulations should be made available. Just like how the acts are, you can actually download acts from Google. Why can't we download the regulations? Why are they made secret? Or it's only when I show up at the airport is when they will ask me for an approval and all these things. So some of these things we need to know about them. We need to actually challenge these people so that they also know that these people are not quiet. They know their rights. Yeah.
I picked on power. You said people in power. That leads me to my next question. So clearly there are challenges that are being faced with the implementation of the laws in South Sudan. So are the powerful and privileged citizens of South Sudan above the law? And what is the likely impact of such a vice? Any recommendations from you in regard to this?
Well, what I see is that the powerful people, use their power to suppress or to sit upon those who are less privileged. That is the truth that we cannot hide. So we have, what I know is that we do selective implementation of laws. So we only implement those we think favor us. If it's really favoring me, I will actually go with it and I will implement it to the fullest. And if I am asked or anything, I will have the law by my side and I say, you see, the law says that. If it does not favor me, I will actually shun it. I will actually not I will pretend like I don't know it. That's what our people are doing. So what can be done about this is we need to first create a situation whereby our citizens know what the law says so that they are not taken for granted. There is power in knowledge. If you know what is your right, or if you know what you're supposed to do or what is not supposed to be done to you, however much someone tries to oppress you, at least you will have what to do. Because now, if you're to take the percentage of the people who know their rights, I wouldn't even say we've reached 30%, leave alone 50% or 35%.
It's true.
The first thing we need to do is to create awareness of these laws, to create awareness of equality, of that women and men are actually equal, and then we are not supposed to be discriminated against. So that's the first thing to do so that we are able to triumph this patriarchal society. So me, I would go with let's equip our people with knowledge, let everyone know their rights so that we know the first thing to do. Even if we say that we need to monitor implementation of these laws, you cannot monitor what you don't know. You still have to start with the knowledge bit. We need to have a campaign whereby we raise awareness on these laws, on what we are talking about, on people's rights, what the constitution says about, so that when we are being faced with certain situations, it's not only the five of us in this studio who will talk and we say that we have talked on behalf. Let all the women rise up and say this is not good. At least there will have, there is strength in numbers also, as much as sometimes numbers are not always an advantage, but there is also strength and unity in numbers. So let's have a way of creating awareness deep down to the grassroots, that people know about their rights, people know about their laws. From there, the laws will be implemented. Because if you equip everyone, everyone will be monitoring, everyone will be a watchdog. So you will find that the system will actually notice that people are aware that what they're doing is wrong. So they will actually try to change by themselves. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Caroline. I want to come back to stories of which were funny, at the same time very sad, from Dr. Juliana Ball. Your almost deportation, or you being called a Kenyan at some point, or you being asked to bring somebody and you had to bring a boss to come and help and witness you. These situations, I want to know, did such experiences give you maybe you had a second thought about having the South Sudanese nationality? And if you did, what message do you have, maybe for the public, or if anybody from the immigration is listening in?
So, to be totally honest, I have my jinsia, and I voted for referendum, and I have gotten the new applications to become actually a South Sudanese, because my jinsia says I'm Sudanese, not South Sudanese. But every time I thought about going through that process, as I said, somebody mentioned humiliation. It was very humiliating. And we can talk about knowing our laws. I did know what the laws were. Knowing the laws in South Sudan does not get you anywhere. In fact, you can go and start saying, this act says this act says that. We know how our people act. You might get thrown in jail. You can get slaps just like that for no reason. So let's be totally honest. It really, a lot of times, takes knowing somebody powerful for you to go and get your rights. And we've had several examples, or just on this panel, where I had to call Captain Captain Yell, to say that, yes, this person is from my tribe. What if that person did not know Captain Yell? I had to go and bring someone in the Ministry of Health just to get my birth registration. What if I didn't know that person? So for me personally, I do not claim, I'm not legally South Sudanese. I claim South Sudanese because this is who I am and this is my identity. It is not my legal status. I don't think, and when after my near deportation, I stopped claiming South Sudanese. So I started getting visas. We had to get visas every month. Even though I was living and working in South Sudan, I have passports full of South Sudanese visas, because immigration said, if you're working in South Sudan and you're not South Sudanese, you have to come every month and get this visa, this work visa. I think it was only 2 times that we got a 3-month visa. So every month you go and get a visa put on your passport. But to me, that became worth it if I thought about having to go and then go through the entire process of now proving that I actually should be South Sudanese. So I think people's experiences are different. There are some parts of my mother's family specifically who have no intention of coming to get South Sudanese citizenship because they're lucky enough or fortunate enough to have citizenship elsewhere, and they can travel to South Sudan and pay the fees, the visa fees, if they have to. And so I think everyone's experience is different, but we are making it difficult for people who are proud of being South Sudanese to actually claim that South Sudanese citizenship. I saw a really interesting question in the Facebook comments, which is about South Sudanese born in refugee camps, and I wanted to mention it because I don't think we've actually thought about it, not as immigration or even those of us on this panel, because if you're born in a refugee camp, your legal status is not accorded to you by the government of that country. So South Sudanese refugees in Kenya, South Sudanese refugees in Ethiopia or in Uganda, they're granted rights because they're under the umbrella of UNHCR, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. That is who protects their rights through an agreement with the government, their hosting institute government. So a South Sudanese born in a Kenyan refugee camp, even if they meet the naturalization requirements of Kenya, cannot legally become Kenyan. So their only means of getting legal status, of not becoming a stateless person, is coming to South Sudan and claiming South Sudanese nationality. Now, if they come to South Sudan and are not granted their legal status, then that means that they have no legal status anywhere. And we have cases, or I know of cases of, Uganda during the war would grant South Sudanese a Ugandan passport, especially South Sudanese who could not get passports from Sudan, because we know the complications of the war. So there are a lot of South Sudanese who during the war, prior to our independence, were holding Ugandan, Ethiopian passports because the governments of this country gave them passports. In Uganda, after independence, a lot of those passports were the government took them back. One thing we need to realize as well, your passport is a legal document that belongs to your government. It never belongs to you. They can ask for it back at any time, right? So a lot of people who had previously had Ugandan passports and Ugandan nationality, because of the fact that we became South Sudan, that was taken away from them, and they would have had to come to South Sudan to claim their citizenship. So as immigration, we also have to know about we have to essentially acknowledge the history of South Sudan. We have had many people who had to flee this country. A lot of them fled as far as the United States. Any United States citizen who comes to South Sudan, if you look at where it says place of birth, it says Sudan. So it acknowledges, a US passport acknowledges that yes, you are a United States citizen, but you are Sudanese. When you come to South Sudan, we need to recognize that these are the children who went from the camps to the diaspora. They should have, in my opinion, an automatic right to claim their citizenship. A lot of them might not be able to bring cousins or nephews or uncles. We know that entire communities fled. So there is a special status for those who fled the war, those who spent, it could be even decades in refugee camps, and now want to come back and claim their citizenship. And I think this is one area that we have not actually talked about, or to be honest, we have not really focused on whenever we discuss immigration. What happens to those with refugee status? What happens to those who lose their status because South Sudan became independent? And when we deny them their rights, what happens in those situations? And to me, the message to immigration is that the humiliation is completely not necessary or needed. No one should have to come to their country and then have to face deportation, or to face essentially 1.5 hours of harassment about that, because they eventually did let me in. I didn't change. They did let me in. No woman has to go to immigration, and they're trying to get grant status for their child, and they have to bring uncles, brothers, cousins, and it's not the same for the man. Let us stop humiliating people. If we want to say that this is what the law says and this is what this is what we are applying, then we should be able to show this is what the law has said, and we're applying it equally for men and women. If the law is discriminatory, we should also change the law. That transitional constitution has not stayed the same since it was written in 2011. It has changed several times, and as Caroline has said, it has changed where it is beneficial to the people changing it. Those are when you have seen that constitution being amended. So let us amend the constitution for everyone equally and not just focus on those who can benefit. And this notion that you need to be powerful if you're powerful in South Sudan, you can do anything. The laws do not apply to you. I think that is something we as South Sudanese have to really think carefully about. What kind of a society are we building? And is this really what we voted for during referendum? I can say for sure it is not what I voted for. Thank you.
Robin, I wanted to highlight something about people who are born in refugee camps, because that's, I think, I wanted to just add. If we look through our Nationality Act, it gives, there's a provision for, I think such people can actually catered for in the section of by birth, because if you look at the instances where you can become a national by birth, there are so many. Even if you're born outside, but by the time of your birth, your parent was or is a South Sudanese, then you're also taken as a South Sudanese. Or for instance, even if you belong to one of the indigenous communities of South Sudan, you're automatically South Sudanese wherever place you're born. But the challenge I get it, because these things are stated, if you could all go through in section 8 of our Nationality Act, you will see it. It's where it's mentioned by birth. First is if your parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents were born in South Sudan. So if those people were born in South Sudan, but you yourself, you're not born in South Sudan, you're still entitled to be South Sudanese by birth. Or if you belong to one of the indigenous ethnic communities of South Sudan, or there are very many. I'm just seeing where the refugees can come in. So I think in these two instances they can come in, and also in the third instance whereby the father or mother was a South Sudanese national by birth or by naturalization. So that one also covers for the refugees. But the issue is, we ourselves outside here, we are the ones who take these things into consideration. The people in these departments who are supposed to give people nationality certificates do not want to familiarize themselves, or they actually want to pretend like they don't know these things. It's either they are pretending or they are very wrong people in those departments. That should be it. Because I imagine by the time you're being taken to work in immigration, you should be well conversant with these two acts, the Nationality Act and the Immigration Act. That's what I think. So if you would go in and then we keep on getting all these things, that means we have wrong people in these departments. So these people, the Ministry of Interior should actually look through its employees or whatever they call it, and let them bring the right people in these departments, because we clearly see that we have a problem. The right people are not being given these nationality certificates, and you find people that are not supposed to be given these certificates getting these certificates. So we clearly have wrong people in these departments. I also wanted to respond to the question of someone asking, getting nationality, the president giving people nationality. Actually, the Nationality Act gives the president that power to give nationality by naturalization to those people who have, there are certain criteria that you're supposed to fulfill before you get naturalized. But then the president can waive those those uh, those steps if you have done something that is of great interest to South Sudan. So the president can actually give it's not recommending, because it's the minister that recommends, but it's the president that gives the final approval that a certain person is given South Sudanese nationality because that person has done something of great interest to the country. Or if you're going to get it through marriage, if you're married to a South Sudanese national but you're not a national and you want to get nationality, you also do not have to follow all the procedures if the president waives them for you. That depends on how you on your good relations and what you've done for the country. I hope I've
For
answered that.
example, what do I need to do for the country for me to be granted that?
Well, I think it's not mentioned expressly. Maybe Captain EL can tell us.
Yes, Captain.
She can tell us, but it
please help
should
us
be
out.
the regulation.
Yeah, let me just give a good example. like we have some of very few people during the struggle or during the war, the SPLM struggle, who also fought along with the SPLM. So after the struggle and after the peace, those people actually, the government, the president can waive and grant them nationality because of their heroic act and because of struggling and also fighting along our government or along the SPLM. So that's one of the example. And that's one of the people I know in South Sudan. There are very few of them that has been granted nationality based on their contribution to our struggle.
Thank you, Captain. While we still have you, I have a question, or I'll throw this out there to you and the panel in general. But one is, why is it that the captain can approve nationality but not the passport? And but not passport, and that only someone with a higher rank can approve the passport, knowing that nationality is the most important. Yeah, because the data from the nationality, it starts with your, I think it's assessment of age. This populates and goes to your jinsia, and this is the information that actually goes into your passport. And I think that is the most critical part of the process, the jinsia itself. So why is it that a higher ranking person approves the passport and then the other way around for the captain? Are you aware of that? What are the dynamics on this one?
I can answer.
Okay.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Juliana, go ahead.
So this is actually international practice. It is almost always easier to get your ID card. That's your nationality card, identity card. The process of getting the passport in almost all countries is much harder than getting your nationality card. And that is because the passport is a legal document that binds governments. So as I mentioned before, your passport does not belong to you, it belongs to your government. And it's a document that is saying the government is requesting the other country to allow you to travel through their borders. So the procedures of you getting that passport is almost always harder because it is essentially a document that is binding governments and saying this government, because are acknowledging this document from this other government and allowing you to travel through or to enter their other country. So I think this is kind of practice in almost all countries. The challenge that you're probably mentioning is that also usually once you have your ID card or your jinsia, whenever you go and get your passport, it is not as complicated as we make it. They might say, okay, you have your national ID card. We want an additional 2 or 3 documents. We might, in the US, we want your tax documents because we want to verify that you are a citizen of rightful stature. Again, because remember, this document binds governments. We want to make sure that you have not committed any criminal offenses. So you might have to have a certificate of good citizenship in the case of Kenya. So there are those other things that come in play, but that is because of the fact that this document is a binding agreement between governments. And so even in the United States and even in Kenya, there are citizens who are not able to get passports and or whose governments have said, we're taking back your passport.
Thank you, Juliana. Captain, is there anything you would like to add to that? Otherwise, I have a very interesting question here. Just while we are going through more or less our last questions, this one is the implications. What happens if, for example, somebody is found to have obtained a passport or a jinsia without following the due process, or not the proper processes, like through birth, for example, through your ethnic background or naturalization? If you're found to have, like she said earlier, paid somebody or someone pretended to know you, such situations, what happens? What are the implications to such a person?
Are we referring to a South Sudanese or to a foreigner?
No, we are referring to a foreigner who obtains South Sudanese documentation not in the right manner. For example, a foreigner could easily get it through naturalization, and they don't do that. So falsification of documentation, and they get nationality. What happens to such a person?
So falsification of documentation is a serious offense, and in such a case, the document will be confiscated at the meantime, and then the person will be under investigation. So we do have the Department of Intelligence or Department of Investigation in the directorate, where they will put that document on hold while they do the investigation to ensure, just to see the processes, how this person has acquired. This is involved even doing a background check on this person, also see how the person has acquired the birth certificate, how did this person got the witness, and who is the witness, and what's the relations to the witness. So after a very thorough investigation, when they conclude that this person is not actually a South Sudanese, then the document will be permanently confiscated, and there is a chance or a possibility that this person will be deported. But deportation is normally being issued by the minister, or the director can recommend, and then the minister can actually approve for this person to be deported. But basically, we confiscate. And in the case that I've witnessed, because I know there is someone that I know, not a little bit of a friend, that actually did acquire our nationality. And my job as an immigration, even though I know this person and this person is my friend, it's still my obligation to protect my citizenship and my identity. So I went to the Department of Intelligence and just repaired the issues, and that person was under investigation. But at this case, they cannot really jail the person. At the end result, I haven't seen any jail, or I haven't seen any very like harmful, like offense or anything. It's just this person is basically, they take they take away the document, and that is it. This person was asked to go back to their country. But there's no, actually, we don't do anything very harmful to the person apart from taking the document and confiscate. And if this person has acquired like a job through that false identity or identification, yes, it's also our job to report to that organization or that job, to let them know that yes, this person is not a South Sudanese, and this he just acquired this documentation in a very falseful way. So we report, and then take out the documentation. That's basically it, most of the cases.
Can I add something? The act demands that such people are imprisoned or they're supposed to pay a fine. But the practice, of course, sometimes some things can be in the law and then the practice is different. But the Nationality Act demands that whoever gives attains a certificate through false information should be, on top of revoking the nationality, they should be convicted, or they are made to pay a fine, or both.
This is considered a criminal act, no?
Yes.
So they should be I would say there should be implications, or they should face the law for sure for
Yeah,
such
and
a
under the Nationality Act, yes, they are supposed to be convicted. But sometimes in practice, sometimes also the officers can be lenient to you if you do not cause more trouble. So maybe if you're found and then you agree to it and you accept and you comply with what you're being told, sometimes they will be more lenient to you.
and in this case, leniency will
I
be what? Deportation, like she said.
Yeah,
Because
leniency will be,
in such a
they will
case,
not force you to
we will
court.
not continue as before for example, with the claim of being a citizen in the country. You have to go back now to wherever you belong.
Yeah, or you can keep on staying in the country, but now you'll have to pay visa because now you will be a foreigner. You won't be a national. Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
understood.
what I also
Captain.
think, is that even those witnesses, there should be a consequences to witnessing to such a person, which is not being taken into considerations. And I think that's very important to teach our people a lesson that if you falsify or you falsely witness for someone who is not a South Sudanese because you're being paid, there is also a consequences. But that is something I've not seen. There's not been any consequences. Someone can witness for a foreigner. They do the investigation. They will confirm that a South Sudanese actually did witness for
Yes.
this person. But however, no consequences to that South Sudanese, which is really a problem, which is actually promoting such
Yes.
act. And also, when you look at those foreigners that are having our nationality, those people have very big names behind them. It's not just any other person. It's very rare to find just any other person who acquired the nationality. But most of the time, it's people with very big names, people with people in the government that is standing behind them. So sometimes it's even very hard. No matter how much you try, I can try to complain, I can try to report, but nothing has been happening because this person has a very big person behind them. The example that I've given you with my friends, that friend of mine doesn't have anyone. Basically, that's why they took it seriously, and that's why they follow through, and they confiscate because that person claimed to be from my tribe, which I think it's an insult to me, and also my tribe. I could not take it as an immigration officer. This person could have tried to pretend to be from any other tribe, but claiming to be from my tribe, I felt that it's my responsibility to report.
So
But
I have a question because I think I am more on the side of having more flexible immigration laws, especially because, you know, I had a very hard time getting citizenship in Kenya at a time when I had been born and raised in Kenya. So I know that, you know, for a lot of people, it is very easy to become stateless, you know, and so I'm very much about flexibility in immigration laws. And, you know, a lot of times we hear that, well, you can get citizenship by naturalization. And I think the examples of people who have acquired citizenship by naturalization in South Sudan has been people who have those powerful people or names behind them. So I would like to know if we have examples of just regular foreigners, Kenyans or Ugandans who've been in South Sudan. I know people who've been in South Sudan even since 2005, working, doing business, doing, you know, just residing in South Sudan, not just in Juba, but outside of Juba as well. There are very many examples of that. Whenever you travel through South Sudan, you find somebody who says, I've been here since for the past 10 years. How easy is it for that person to acquire naturalization? Because I think we can say that, yes, go and get it by naturalization, but if it's very, very difficult, then what happens in that situation? So what are the examples of people, or do we have an idea of how many people have been naturalized in South Sudan who are not powerful Lebanese or powerful coming from even Central America? I mean, not Central, but Central Europeans are getting citizenship in South Sudan. So what is the how easy is it to get it?
Well, I think I wouldn't say it's that easy. I don't want to lie that it's very easy to get it because I know that there's some complications attached to it. But I also want to say that sometimes people don't actually follow up with these processes, or sometimes people don't know about these processes. So you find I've known some people who want to be citizens, but they do not want to follow the one where they what is applicable to them. So most of the people only think that you can be a citizen by birth. And that is where the problem is. So you find them going and applying for citizenship, and now they want to forge out these things because they just want to be citizens by birth. They don't know that at the end, if you get the citizenship, whether it's by birth or by naturalization, you all have the same duties, responsibilities, and rights. So it still comes back to what our people know about these things.
Sorry to interrupt you, Caroline. We've been calling it processes when it
Yes.
comes to the naturalization. What are these processes exactly? What criteria do you need to fulfill to be able to be naturalized? In
Well,
this case, what
it's
documentation do I
basically
need to show that I actually deserve to or be
to
a
be
South Sudanese?
by naturalization. You have to be of a mature age. You have to be of a sound mind. You have to prove that you've stayed in South Sudan consistently for 10 years and you also have to prove of an intention that you're going to actually remain in South, or you're going to stay in South Sudan for more, not like just getting and go away. That's it.
What do I need to prove? That I've been in South Sudan for more than 10 years, some kind of a residency?
Exactly. So now that's when the Sheikh Al Hila has to know you, all these things. You know how before we came to these Sheikh Al Hila things, when we were still with Sudan, we had it's called Butaka the second, like that residential permit. Not Shakhsiya. There is she had a second.
Yeah.
There is that small certificate for residence, something like that. So you have to prove that for example, if you resided in a certain area, the Sheikh Al Hila for that area has to have known that you've actually been a resident for this amount of years, and if you've relocated, you have to have basically some evidence to show that you've been there for all this time. And then the beauty of it is if you're naturalized, then immediately the minors under you are also naturalized and all that. So most people do not know that actually if you're a citizen by either naturalization or by birth, you get the same privileges, if there are any privileges anyway. You get the same rights, you have the same responsibilities, but it's because we don't know these things. So you find some people, that's why I think some people go the long way of having to bribe or having to get others to witness for them. But if you could have everyone on the same page to know that these things, you can actually be a citizen through a different way. Yeah, thanks.
But it also comes down to our staff integrity. You know, our staff. Oh, this is not only immigration, but it's a general South Sudan issues. Staff stayed for 6 months to 4 months without salary. You know, they basically come to work because they have nothing to do. They, instead of sitting in the house or going to a tea tree to drink tea, they rather come to work. Now, if you get an offer, someone who is willing to pay you very good certain amount of money just to help them acquire that documentation. Of course, these immigration officers, some of them who does not have integrity will not shut it down, or they will prefer just to have that money. So it's also a challenge, as our government is not really concerned about the staff welfare. They decide to figure it out in different way, which is a corrupt way. You know, at some point, as much as we blame them, it's also like survival. They do that because they want to survive, because they have family who wants to eat. So they indulge in this corrupt way by helping foreigners to get nationality. So this is a very common issue, or it's a general issue, that one of the ways just for our government to take our staff welfare very seriously. You know, I hope that's answer a little bit, or shine a little bit of point on that issue.
Thank you, Captain. Juliana, are we good? We got a bit of answer to our question, no?
Yes, except I still insist that the process needs to be made clearer, and the process needs to be recognized, not just in terms of the public knowing about it, but immigration officers knowing about it. So for example, if I come and I want to fraudulently get nationality because I don't know that there's a naturalization process, the immigration officer should advise me accordingly. And let me know what the right processes are. Even if they still want me to pay them, at least they can steer me in the right direction and still get the money, the chai. So I think making the processes more transparent is needed.
Thank you. Thank you. I saw a comment earlier on about the possibility of having males or men from the immigration department also in the next discussion, so we can throw this at them. And also that made me think about the issues that women in particular face when they're trying to get this documentation, or when they're traveling, especially when they're moving with their children, or such situations. I want to bring in Lily just to ask. I know we've gone through this before, but maybe just to break it down a bit, some of the challenges that women are facing in South Sudan, especially when they're claiming their citizenship, and what are the recommendations you would give us for now going forward?
Yeah, thank you, Pony. It's a good question. There are so many challenges as women living in South Sudan, especially in regard to acquiring the citizenship. One is communication. We really have poor communication in South Sudan because at times we are not able to get the information, the correct information, because even with the officers themselves, they don't understand what the constitution or what information they have regarding the citizenship. Some of them are not able to give the concrete information to the women trying to acquire the passport or the nationality. So hence it's a very big challenge for women, especially that gap that you walk in and you don't read or you don't have access even to the information, you don't know what you're supposed to come with, and at the end of the day you're stranded or you're embarrassed because you don't have the right documentation, because you didn't understand or you didn't get the correct information to be able to process your jinsia correctly. That is really very challenging to women. Another one is access to information. Some of this information we don't have access to. For example, women in the rural area who don't have internet, or who even don't understand what the constitution is. They don't understand their rights. How do they get this information? It's very hard. So it's a right time that the government look into this issue, because in South Sudan we have 64 tribes, and we have more than 64 languages spoken in South Sudan. Not everybody speaks English. Right now the document is in English or maybe translated into Arabic. What about the poor person down there who speaks only maybe Kakwa or maybe Fujulu or whatever, or Zande, who doesn't read English? How will that one have that access to that information? The other issue is that this information given at times, who holds on the information? Is the men who holds on information, and at times they don't share with women. And when the information are not shared with us, how do we get to know what is needed out of us? So we tend not even to understand, because we don't have the access to information. We don't even know what is our right in South Sudan. We don't know what we need to become or to acquire the citizenship of South Sudan. This is a very big challenge to us. The other one is discrimination, the gender discrimination. We are really being discriminated in so many areas in South Sudan as women. I know many can justify to this. Like when a woman walks in, even for example, there's a time I was traveling with my little child. I was coming from Kampala going. The first thing they approached the officer, he saw me with my passport and my ginseng in my hands. I was handling it. The guy, instead of approaching me in a nice way, the guy came and grabbed my shirt and said, "Hey, you, where are you going?" I had my ginseng right in my hands. I said, "Excuse me, who is Wewe?" And I was really getting tired of this, because I was a woman, he was able to grab my chest. And yet I was working with men. He never approached them. He never touched the chest. But he had to have that eager, that, where are you going? Then I say, "What do you mean by Wewe?" He asked me even to the extent of like, "Who gave you this passport?" I said, "Please, this is my passport. This is my jinsia. So does it mean all South Sudanese should have the same color? What shows that I'm a Wewe? Why do you call me a Wewe?" So I had to speak in Arabic, and I was actually very embarrassed, because everyone was like looking at me and saying, "Oh, this is Wewe," and yet I was not Wewe. Just because I was a woman, he was able to grab me and attach me. So this is a very challenge to us, because we are women. Men has right to the extent of grabbing our shirt because I'm a woman, but a man cannot be approached that way. So it's very challenging for us. And how do we handle that? We really need to work hard on that. The other one is the language barriers. We don't speak the same languages. Some of us, even English is a problem, Arabic is a problem. Or for example, like some of us who are born out of South Sudan, we don't have any single language. Maybe we only speak a different language. So how do we break down these policies or constitution to people to understand, so that we can own it to be part of us? When we don't own it, then it becomes challenge for us, because we cannot get what we want. And the other one is the technical personnel working actually at the immigration. Not most of them, to be honest, South Sudanese are not well trained If they are trained, yes, but they are few. But if you look at some of them, they are not really qualified. I'll give an example, like when they are, I don't know which criteria do they use to recruit the officers, because at times you find that people have just graduated, but you don't know how it was advertised, how they recruited the people to become the customers officers. In many cases, you find if you are related to the minister or to the big man, yes, you'll be taken. Either you're educated or you're not educated. They don't care as long as you have somebody to back you up. And that's why nepotism is coming in. So as a woman, if you don't have anyone who knows you in the big run, where are you going to be? So it's very, very challenging for us right now in South Sudan that tribalism is killing us, nepotism is killing us, which is a challenge. And in most cases, women suffer because they don't have the voice, they don't have people to stand with them. So this is the right time now for us as women, as my recommendation, we have to unite, we have to understand our role, we have to know what is our right as women in South Sudan. What role can we play? How can we get this citizenship without being embarrassed? How can I pass through the border with my passport without being embarrassed? As a woman, I have a right to live in South Sudan. I have a right. I did not ask God to change my color or to make me short or to make me tall. So we equally need to live as South Sudanese, and we need the government should make sure the people they are recruiting should be well trained, even how to approach the women. Some women cannot speak for themselves. They're shy because that's how we were brought up. But once they are trained on how to approach these ladies, they shouldn't embarrass them. They are their sisters, they are their mothers, they are their wives. This is when we will have that good relationship. We can communicate very well. But when we don't have good officers who are well trained, that's why we'll keep on having that embarrassment. We'll keep on have corruption that you are talking about, because somebody wants to get passport today. I have to pay money, and I will get it today, whether I'm a South Sudanese or I'm a foreigner. I will get it because I have money. The government have to make sure they pay these people, they train them well, they get people who are qualified to be trained as officers, not just grab because the person is a niece to the minister, or is a daughter to the general, or he's a son to the general. Whether he went to school or not, he's an officer tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. So we keep on embarrassing ourselves. My third recommendation is the government should make sure at least let them try to translate the constitution in different languages and broadcast it on the media at least once in a week, so that the poor people in the state or at the Boma level, they tend to understand. Let them get the information and know, oh, when I don't have a man by me to sign for me, I should get a document from a chief, or I should get a letter from a church leader, because it's my witness. But if they don't have that information, how do they go? They come like, just like me. I came from Yambia. I didn't know what was required, and I was asked, you have to bring a male, a relative, to sign for you. If I got that information, I would have not traveled all the way with no documentation to Juba. So the government needs to break down this to make sure we all get the right information from the right source. We know our rights, and we also improve on the system we have, so that we have a better immigration in South Sudan, so that we also change that value. To be honest, immigration is like kind of a business in South Sudan, and people talk a lot about it. But because you cannot talk to an officer, you'll be in the second, you'll just be arrested and put in the jail. But people at times, they know the right, they know they are right, but they cannot talk, because once I talk, when I tell you the truth, you're gonna take me in. So I don't want to go in. So the best way is to keep quiet. And the face value of South Sudan is messed up. So at times you find yourself, why are we doing all this? So in my final words is, this is the right time. Women, let's know our right. Let's get the right information. If we can source it, let's source it and make sure we share the information among ourselves. Let's know what is required of us when we go for passport. Government has to make sure he recruits women, enough women, to work in those offices, because they know how to handle their counterpart or their women, female women, they will know how to talk to them, they will know how to convince them. Let's unite together, let's work as one body, as South Sudanese, to change the face of South Sudan for the betterment, for the development, for the everlasting peace in South Sudan. Thank you, Pony. I'll be signing out because I'm at work and it's time out for me. I want to thank you so much. I want to thank Asha for this forum. And I urge you all, the South Sudanese, the 60 tribe, this is time. It's time for you and me to change that country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lily. We really appreciate the insight and being with us for these 2 hours. 2 hours have gone so fast. The discussion has been quite interesting. We really appreciate your participation in this, and we hope to catch you some other time. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Bye all.
Bye-bye. Now, this brings me, Lily had the opportunity, maybe when we are closing, maybe I am requesting that we have a parting shot, like where each of you gives me, just like in under a minute, what you would say to a fellow woman out there, of South Sudanese woman who is trying to acquire this documentation, sitting whether in South Sudan or in the diaspora. And also, what would you like to say to our brothers and sisters at the immigration? I will start with Juliana.
So I'm not going to answer in terms of what that woman should do, because as we've heard, it is outside of her frame of influence. It is not up to her. So there's not much that she can do. What I want to do is follow up on what the last speaker said, which is about the face of South Sudan. Immigration for any country is the first face of the country, because any immigrant, any foreigner who's coming to that country, whether they have to go to the embassy, whether they land at Juba International Airport, the first people that they interface with are immigration officers. And so we should hold them to the highest professional ethics and standards, because they represent our country. The fact that we are not is leading to a lot of the problems we are all talking about today. The fact that an immigration officer can grab a woman at an official customs post is something that should give anybody in the Ministry of Interior, something to think about, because it should not be acceptable. It should not be that the face of our country can do this to somebody. We also talked about humiliation. A lot of us are being humiliated just because we want to even just go and get the application forms to get citizen. Forget about even trying to get the papers, just getting the application forms. We're being humiliated by that. The way that we are treating people, whether they're foreigners or not foreigners, is something that we have to really think about critically. We are now watching stories of humanitarian workers being killed, not just in Juba, but in the States, because we are having this hostility to people who are not South Sudanese. And a lot of times we're even saying it's because they don't look South Sudanese. So I think really how we are interacting with each other is something we need to think about. But for immigration specifically, this is the face of our nation, whether it's at the embassy in Kenya, whether it's at customs in Nimule, whether it's at Juba International Airport. These are the first people that anybody who's coming to South Sudan or who wants to come to South Sudan, these are the people that they see. So unless they can treat people with respect, whether or not they're foreigners or nationals, is something that we need to really think critically and carefully about. If they don't have the right training, they should be trained. If they don't have the right education requirements or experiences, then we should be doing a lot to do that, because it is, I think, very, very important. When we are afraid to go and deal with immigration, that's a problem. And a lot of us are afraid because of our previous experiences dealing with immigration. So that's what I don't think I need to speak to any woman, because we all know the challenges. Unless the law is changed, unless the attitude is changed, there is very little we can do except go and look for somebody who's powerful. So yeah, so that is my key message. Professionalizing the department.
Thank you, Juliana. Captain Ia?
So I just want to go back. At some point at the beginning of the immigration department, at the start, immigration department used to be one of the most recognized and acknowledged department by most, actually, even the NGO sector and even the government. They're like, wow, this is one of the most example of how institutions should be run. So my recommendation or my advice is not really to only the immigration officers, but people at the senior level. When I joined the immigration department, I was at the IT department, so I was mostly the technical expertise, but then being promoted to a captain. And then the intention of us being promoted into a police or being integrated into a police is to have us as an immigration officers. So it's very important that the general police actually recognize that immigration, though under the police, it's also a different sector, and these people, their work is very different from the general police. So it's important to just have these technical officers as an immigration officers, transferring of these officers from different directorate or different to the general police. It's one of the main causes of all these challenges, because bringing someone from the police to just the immigration without the knowledge and the know-how or the expertise of how an immigration should be run, or how an immigration officer should behave, or the professionalism of the immigrations, they don't have that knowledge. So it's very important to just maintain those immigration officers as an immigration officers, so to have those qualified people in the immigration officers than taking them. Someone like, if you take me to a general police officers, to a general police service, I don't have the expertise, I don't have the knowledge, I don't know how to behave as a general police. But as an immigration officer, I know my role more. So it's very important, I think, to just have these technical sectors, to maintain these people, to maintain the professionalism, to maintain them as the immigration officers, rather than having them under the general police. I will suggest, if we could have immigration officer to be a different under a different sector, rather than Minister of Interior, I think that director will run better or smoothly, because with each director coming in, they come with their own people, they come with different concept, with different idea, which normally brings so much conflict and so much of these challenges now that we are facing now. So that's just my advice. I wish we can maintain those immigration officers at their duty station, rather than taking them to the general police and having all these issues. That's all my recommendations.
Thank you, Captain. Last but not least, Caroline, should.
Well, I would want the Ministry of Interior to have the right people in the right places. I think if we had those right people in the right places, everything would have been well. And also on top of that, we need to strengthen their capacity, because if they're the right people, I don't think we need to build their capacity, because they already have some capacity that just needs to be strengthened. So we need to have, like, maybe every 6 months they should have some trainings, more trainings, to improve on whatever they already know, so that they also keep up with the trends, or with whatever is done globally. And then to the ordinary people, to the ordinary citizens, to ordinary women like myself, I think we need to, as much as we've lost hope in the law, I still think that we should go back to this law, and it's also part of our role to implement this. It's our duty and responsibility as good citizens to actually abide the law and go by the law. Never know. Sometimes, if even if someone is doing wrong and they keep seeing you doing the right thing, sometimes you might actually be. That's a way of changing other people's behaviors. And to us as South Sudan Women Intellectual Forum, I think we should actually do some kind of seminars for women to know their rights. I don't know how we can do that, but I think the management and the people who are in the steering committee, we can think about having some sessions. We can name them Know Your Rights, so that we actually make citizens to know their rights. We can take them topic by topic, so that everyone at least gets to know. We can start, the focus can first start with the Bill of Rights, and we move on forward, so that everyone, so it's a way of bringing everyone on board, creating awareness on people's rights. Thank you.
I just want to add, for the discrimination, I want to push it to Minister of Gender. I think this is a very good call for Minister of Gender to advocate. When we hear these challenges at the airport, it's their role to take it up with the Minister of Interior. It's their role to see, like, our women are facing these issues. So I want to push this to Minister of Gender to please advocate, or I want to push it to this panel to communicate this to Minister of Gender to push and advocate for our right in all these different sectors, or these challenges that women are facing in all these sectors. Please, the Minister of Gender or South Sudan Intellectual Women Forum, communicate to Minister of Gender to push for women. We have the regulations that we can always reference. We have the Nationality Act that we can always reference, the Constitution that we can always reference. So let us push for it. Let us push for our rights, and let's advocate for it. Thank you.
What a great parting shot. Thank you very much, Captain. And with that, we're coming to the end of our discussion. Unless last opportunity, anybody wants to say something? No, we're good. Okay. So with that, I would like to thank the great ladies who took the time to sit with us and have this discussion. My big thanks to everyone who was tuned in today to this discussion. And I saw there were a number of comments coming in. Some we were able to answer. Others, I believe we will, if there are any more that we were not able to answer due to time constraint, we can go down to the comment section and answer your questions. I would like to also thank the team members working behind the scene, Aisha, Anne, and the lot who have made this possible for us, especially the women, the UN women, for providing the internet for some of our panelists who are in Juba. You know how unstable the internet in Juba is. Well, with that, as I said, we've come to the end of this very interesting discussion, and I would like to say thank you to everybody. Good morning to the guys who have just woken up, and good evening to the rest of us. Thank you very much.